I used to believe family was the warmest place, a haven where love and fairness reigned. I was wrong, and the lesson I learned was bitter and sharp. Not every child in a family is treated with the same care. Some are cherished, while others are left to fend for themselves. Hey there, I'm Abigail Harper, 32 years old, a real estate investor who's built a life from the ground up. I've always felt like a stranger in my own home, ever since I was a child. I realized early on that I was nothing like my younger brother, Nathan, 2 years my junior, the family's golden child. While I learned to stand on my own from a young age, Nathan was cradled in unwavering protection and indulgence. My parents were a typical middle-class family, not wealthy, but comfortable enough to support both their children. Yet they poured all their love, expectations, and attention into Nathan alone. When something happened at 18 that changed my life forever, I learned just how far their favoritism extended, and I vowed to never let it define me again. Here's my story. Growing up, the contrast between Nathan and me was stark. If Nathan wanted something, my parents moved heaven and earth to make it happen. If I wanted something, they'd find a reason to say no, their refusal as predictable as the sunrise. When I was 6, I got a teddy bear for Christmas, soft and brown with a little red bow. I loved it fiercely, hugging it every night before bed, its warmth a quiet comfort. But Nathan saw it, cried, and begged for one just like it. Without hesitation, Mom snatched the bear from my hands and gave it to him, her voice firm. "Abigail, you're the older sister. You have to let Nathan have it." I burst into tears, my small heart breaking, but all she said was, "Don't be selfish." At 12, I had a piano recital after months of grueling practice, my fingers aching from endless scales. I scanned the audience, hoping to see my parents' faces, but they never came. The reason? Nathan had a mild cold, and taking him to the doctor was deemed more urgent than watching me perform. At 14, I won a state-level science award, a moment of pride I clutched tightly. But no one in my family mentioned it, not a word, not a smile. That same day, Nathan scored a goal in his school soccer game. And you can guess who got a celebration party, complete with cake and cheers. I tried so hard to earn their pride. I hoped, year after year, that if I worked harder, achieved more, they'd see me the way they saw Nathan. But the older I got, the clearer it became. No matter how well I did, I'd never be their star. Then, at 18, something happened that shattered any lingering illusions and set me on a path I never expected. After graduating high school, I received a full-ride scholarship to a prestigious university, the kind of opportunity that felt like a lifeline. I held the acceptance letter in my hands, my heart pounding, hoping, just once, for a glimmer of pride in my parents' eyes. But Mom sighed, her voice heavy with hesitation. "Abigail, are you sure you want to go so far away? We're not well off, and if you leave, who'll help your father and me?" I didn't fully grasp her meaning until Dad spoke, his tone blunt. "Nathan's going to college in 2 years, and his tuition will be expensive. We can't afford to support both of you." I froze, the letter trembling in my hands. "But I have a scholarship," I said, my voice shaking. "My tuition's covered." Mom shook her head, her expression dismissive. "That's just tuition, Abigail. What about living expenses, housing, food? Do you know how expensive it is to live away from home?" In that moment, everything inside me cracked, the weight of their words crushing the hope I'd clung to. They were willing to cover everything for Nathan, tuition, housing, all of it. But for me, a few $1,000s a year for basic needs was too much. Summoning every ounce of courage, I looked them in the eyes, my voice calm but unyielding. "I'll take care of myself. My scholarship includes living expenses. If I need more, I'll get a part-time job. I won't ask for your money, and I won't be a burden." Silence filled the room, heavy and tense. Mom glanced at Dad, waiting for him to protest, but he only sighed, crossing his arms. "Do whatever you want," he said, his voice flat, devoid of pride or encouragement. Mom nodded, her expression indifferent, as if my decision was a minor inconvenience. No congratulations, no warmth, no sadness that their daughter was leaving home to start a new chapter, just cold, unsettling apathy. The next day, I stepped into a life of independence, carrying nothing but determination and a refusal to look back. At college, I knew I could rely only on myself. I chose a dorm to save money, not because I loved the cramped space, but because every dollar mattered. I majored in real estate, a field brimming with competition but ripe with opportunity. I didn't choose it out of passion. I chose it because it was the fastest way to build a future. Someone like me, starting with nothing, couldn't afford to chase dreams. I needed a practical plan. Through a school referral, I landed a part-time job at a brokerage firm, earning $15 an hour with the chance for commissions on sales or leases. I threw myself into work like it was my lifeline, diving in with a fire no one could extinguish. I had no connections, no experience, no reputation, just perseverance, a stubborn refusal to fail. While other students spent their free time socializing or savoring their youth, I studied the market relentlessly, learning its rhythms and secrets. I taught myself how to talk to clients, assess a property's potential, and understand buyer psychology. I shadowed senior agents, memorizing their every word, every technique, absorbing their strategies like a sponge. The first time I closed a rental deal, the rush was electric, a spark of possibility igniting in my chest. When I received my first commission, $1,200, I stared at my bank account for a long time, the numbers proof of what I could achieve on my own. With my part-time income, I covered my expenses without worry, learning to manage finances, cut unnecessary costs, and save every penny. I didn't want to just survive. I wanted to build a foundation, brick by brick, for a future no one could take away. My parents called occasionally, their questions perfunctory, a box to check. "Are you doing okay? Still keeping up with school? Nathan's been busy, you know. He's working hard too." I kept my answers short. "Yes, I'm fine." They never asked more, never cared to know what I was building or if I was struggling. I no longer felt the need to share, their indifference a wall I stopped trying to climb. After graduating, with 3 years of brokerage experience and a solid client network, I dove straight into work, no time for celebration or rest. I sold and leased properties, stacking commissions. But I didn't want to stay a broker forever, working for someone else's profit. I wanted to own real estate, to hold something tangible in my name. 2 years after graduation, I bought my first house for $500,000, paying $300,000 up front and taking a loan for the rest. It was a nerve-wracking decision, weeks of calculations and sleepless nights weighing every risk, but I knew it was the step I needed to take. I was a homeowner, a milestone no one in my family knew about. I kept it secret, feeling no urge to share, and that choice became one of my wisest. I didn't stop there. I kept pushing, working, investing, expanding. Within 5 years, I owned apartments, commercial properties, and dipped my toes into the hotel market. By 28, I had built a life most only dream of. Nathan, meanwhile, graduated and drifted from job to job, never lasting more than 6 months, failing repeatedly. Yet my parents never held him accountable, always ready with an excuse. "Nathan just hasn't found the right job yet." That company didn't recognize his talent. "He's young. He has time to experiment." I never intended for my family to know about my success, but secrets have a way of slipping out. 2 years ago, A simple dinner invitation from Mom changed everything. Her message was curt. "Are you free tomorrow night? Come home for dinner." No greeting, no questions about my life, just a request, as if I were a distant acquaintance. I considered declining, but curiosity tugged at me. It had been ages since I'd visited. Maybe, just maybe, they wanted to reconnect. I arrived at 7 in the evening, the house unchanged, its familiar walls holding the same heavy atmosphere. Dinner unfolded as always, a monologue about Nathan, his new job, his business ideas, his need for a little more time to settle. I nodded, silent, used to the routine. But then an accident shifted everything. While I was in the kitchen fetching water, my phone, left on the dining table, pinged with a notification. I didn't think much of it, but Nathan noticed. "Got a message, huh? From your boyfriend?" "Let me see," he teased, grabbing my phone. Its lock screen displayed notification previews, and his curious grin faded to shock. I stepped closer, but it was too late. He held up the phone, reading aloud. "Contract confirmation for the acquisition of Pineview Retreat Resort. Total value, $12 million. The room fell silent, forks pausing mid-air. Mom blinked rapidly, as if her mind couldn't process the words. Dad set his fork down, staring at me. Nathan let out a dry laugh, crossing his arms as he placed my phone back on the table. "Are you kidding me? 12 million? Pineview Retreat Resort?" No one spoke for several seconds, the air thick with disbelief. I picked up my phone, turned off the screen, and met their eyes, my voice calm. "Yes, I acquired a small resort." Dad's tone was sharp, almost accusing. "Where did you get 12 million? I pressed my lips together, bracing for the inevitable. Nathan's voice cut through, laced with resentment. "How long have you been hiding this from us?" The clinking of utensils and the ticking of the wall clock were the only sounds, indifferent to the tension. Resting my hands on the table, I spoke slowly, each word deliberate. "I wasn't hiding it. No one ever asked." Silence fell again, heavier than before. The conversation shifted, no longer about dinner or family updates. They stared at me like I was a stranger who'd wandered into their home. 5 minutes later, Mom spoke, her voice softer than I'd ever heard, as if soothing a child. "Abigail, I never imagined you'd be this successful. I thought you just had a regular office job." I stayed silent, watching her. She reached for my hand, patting it gently, a gesture so rare I couldn't recall the last time she'd done it. "My daughter's so talented, but you never shared this with us. If you'd told us sooner, we could have helped you manage your life better." I slid my hand away, my voice steady. "I can handle it myself." Mom smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes, and turned to Dad. "What do you think about moving to a new house? This place is getting cramped. Now that our daughter's well off, it's only right to upgrade to something more fitting for her status." Dad sipped his wine, nodding. "Yeah, I think so. There's a beautiful suburban estate, spacious, with a garden. A little over 2 million, but that shouldn't be a problem for Abigail." I set my glass down, my tone even. 2 million? Mom's smile widened, her eyes gleaming with expectation. "That's right. A bigger, more comfortable home with rooms for everyone. If we have guests, we'll finally have space to entertain. This house is way too small now." I tilted my head, studying her. "You want me to buy a house for the whole family?" She corrected me quickly, her voice smooth, calculated. "Not buy, invest. The house would be in your name, but we'd all live together. You're the most successful in the family, so it makes sense for you to help, right?" I let out a small, humorless laugh, the sound sharp in the quiet room. Her words sounded like a polished business pitch, as if she were selling me a high-stakes venture. Before I could respond, Nathan leaned forward, his voice calm but eager. Ever thought about investing in a different industry? I raised an eyebrow. What industry? He smirked, tapping his fingers on the table. Startups. I waited, letting him continue. He met my gaze, confidence unwavering. I have a promising business idea. All I need is initial capital to build a sustainable company. About 5 million. I blinked. 5 million? He nodded, unfazed. You've got the money. You could help speed things up. Building from scratch would take years, but with your investment, I could succeed faster. Leaning back, I crossed my arms. What kind of business needs 5 million? You're talking like it's 50,000. Nathan frowned, irritation flickering. A startup. Technology, market research, finance. There are lots of directions. You don't need to worry about details. I've got it planned. I smirked. So, you have nothing? Just an idea? His brows furrowed, voice sharp. You don't trust me? This is a huge opportunity. I'm your brother. What's wrong with helping me out? I laughed softly, not from amusement, but from the hollow ache of familiarity. Mom shook her head, her patience thinning. Abigail, you're being selfish. Your family needs you, yet you're calculating every dollar with your brother. Dad pushed harder, his tone firm. This isn't a big deal, Abigail. With your wealth, a few 100,000 is nothing. I looked at them, Mom, Dad, Nathan, each waiting for me to bend, to give in as I always had. You're right, I said slowly, my voice clear. You've never asked me for anything. They leaned forward, expectant. I gave a faint smile. Because you've always believed I was obligated to give. The room grew tense, the air heavy with unspoken truths. I stood, pushing my chair back. I think I should go. Nathan shot up, his voice rising. You can't just walk away. Have you ever thought about this family? I met his gaze, unflinching. Has this family ever thought about me? No one answered, their silence a confession. I stepped toward the door, but paused, turning back. You call me selfish, I said quietly, but have you ever asked yourselves who the real selfish ones are? I walked out, the door closing behind me, believing that was the end. I was naive. They weren't just greedy. They were cunning, ruthless in ways I hadn't anticipated. A year passed, their calls and messages dwindling. I thought they'd accepted I wasn't their bank, but they had a darker plan. Without telling me, they mortgaged their house to fund Nathan's startup, keeping it secret until it was too late. I found out a year ago, sitting in my office, deep in research for a major project, when my phone buzzed. Mom's name flashed. I hesitated, then answered, my voice calm. What is it, Mom? A heavy sigh came through, laced with practiced distress. Abigail, we're about to lose the house. I froze, brows furrowing. Lose the house? What do you mean? Her voice trembled, a sob breaking through. Your father and I took out a mortgage, and now the bank says they'll seize the house if we don't pay it back. I straightened, unease creeping in. You mortgaged the house? Why? A brief silence, then her voice, low and hesitant. A friend invited us to invest in a restaurant. They said it was a great opportunity. I frowned. A restaurant? She rushed to justify it. They guaranteed it to be profitable. We only needed a small portion, but it didn't work out. My grip on the phone tightened. How much did you take out? Another pause, then a quick answer, hoping I'd miss it. $300,000, I repeated, forcing calm. 300,000, she sobbed, her voice desperate. Abigail, please. If we can't pay, we'll lose everything. We have nowhere to go. Can you help? It's just 300,000. I'm begging you. I closed my eyes, breathing deeply. Financially, 300,000 wasn't a stretch. I could wire it tomorrow, and the problem would vanish. But something felt wrong, a nagging doubt I couldn't shake. You want me to lend you 300,000 to save the house? I asked. She nodded eagerly, her voice brimming with hope. Yes, just a loan. We'll pay you back when we can. I stared out my office window, my mind blank. I could help, but I needed clarity. I'll think about it, I said, my tone firm. Her voice rose, panicked. Abigail, we don't have time. The bank sent a notice. If you don't help, we'll lose our home. I held steady. I understand, but I need time to think. Before she could argue, I ended the call. The unease lingered, a gut feeling I couldn't ignore. I called Ethan, a close friend and financial expert I trusted implicitly, brilliant at digging into real estate transactions. Ethan, I need you to check my parents' house, I said, voice steady. They say the bank's seizing it, but something's off. I need the full financial history. He responded confidently. Got it. I'll look into it. Give me a bit. That night, he called back, his tone serious. Abigail, you were right. The house was mortgaged for 300,000, but there's a problem. I gripped the phone. What is it? He took a breath. Your parents aren't listed on the mortgage. Nathan signed the loan. It's in his name. I froze, the words sinking in. What did you say? Ethan repeated, precise. Nathan's the legal owner. The loan's under him. My heart pounded. Why is Nathan the owner? When did they transfer the house? He sighed. A year ago, Abigail, they transferred full ownership to Nathan. A cold chill ran through me. They'd planned this from the start, right after learning about my wealth. By putting the house in Nathan's name, they thought I'd feel obligated to save it. This wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated trap. I steadied my voice. Ethan, by tomorrow morning, I want every document related to this. He didn't hesitate. Got it. I'll send everything. I hung up, leaning back, staring at the wall. I knew exactly what came next. The next morning, at 8, I drove to my parents' house, the neighborhood quiet under a pale dawn. My mind was set. This was the final confrontation. Mom saw me first, freezing in the yard, then rushing forward, her face lighting up. Abigail, you're here! Dad stepped out, coffee in hand, raising an eyebrow before smiling. You've thought it over, haven't you? You're going to help, right? I didn't answer, my gaze sweeping over them. Nathan sat on the living room couch, unnervingly relaxed, as if this wasn't his mess. I stepped inside, set a folder of documents on the glass coffee table, and pulled out a chair. We need to talk. They sat across from me, Mom smiling gently, as if I were making things difficult before inevitably giving in. I opened the folder, placing mortgage documents on the table. You said the bank's taking the house, but it was mortgaged a year ago, and you transferred it to Nathan before taking out a $300,000 loan. Mom's smile froze. I continued, my voice ice cold. You weren't forced into this. You handed the property to Nathan so he could take the loan. You lied about a restaurant investment. The money went to Nathan's startup. The room turned frigid. Mom stiffened, her face paling. Dad gripped his chair's armrest, while Nathan remained unfazed, as if untouched by the truth. Mom swallowed, trying to recover. Abigail, that doesn't matter now. What matters is, we need money to keep the house. I smirked. So you lied, thinking I'd hand over the money if I believed you were victims. Dad cleared his throat, patience thinning. Abigail, you're blowing this out of proportion. The money's gone. What matters is whether you'll help your family. I leaned forward, meeting their eyes. No, what matters is that you lied. Nathan chuckled dryly, crossing his arms. So what? You can help. 300,000 is nothing to you. I turned to him, disdain sharp. Nathan, this is your problem. You took the loan, spent the money, and now you expect me to clean it up. He shrugged, unbothered. You've got tens of millions. What's 300,000? Mom nodded eagerly. He's right, Abigail. Family supports each other, doesn't it? I laughed, short and hollow. Family? Where was my family when I paid for college? When I worked to exhaustion to buy my first house? Did you ever ask how I was or care when I built my career from nothing? Dad's jaw clenched, his voice colder. You're being selfish. Mom jumped in, her tone sharp. You have millions and refuse to give your parents 300,000. Do you have a conscience? I didn't flinch. If it's so small, why don't you earn it yourselves? Mom opened her mouth, but no words came. I looked at them, strangers now, their greed laid bare. If you agree to sell this house to me, I'll consider buying it and letting you stay, I said, voice steady. If you need a place to live, I'll handle it practically. But don't think I'll let you keep taking advantage. Dad's knuckles whitened, then he grabbed a glass and hurled it to the floor, the shatter echoing. He shot up, face red with fury. I have no daughter like you! Get out! Mom gasped, staring at him. Nathan froze, disbelief flickering in his eyes. I looked at Dad, my expression empty. No anger, no pain, just a void. I turned and walked out, the door closing for good. They'd made their choices, and I wasn't coming back to save them. I thought that was the end, but a week later, my lawyer's email stopped me cold. Lawsuit for parental support. My parents had sued me, demanding monthly financial support, claiming I, their biological daughter, owed them for their sacrifices. They accused me of being ungrateful, abandoning them in need, alleging they had no home, no income, and that I was legally obligated to care for them forever. I smirked, a cold smile. They'd gone this far, not just asking for money, but trying to force it through the law. I called my lawyer, my voice sharp. They want a legal battle? Fine. I'll teach them a lesson they won't forget. Preparing for the trial was swift. My parents underestimated me, thinking the law could bend me to their will. They forgot I wasn't the girl they controlled at 18. At the hearing, I entered the courtroom composed, my parents seated on the plaintiff's side. Mom looked worn, her face twisted with resentment. Dad sat rigid, his gaze cold. I felt nothing, no anger, no pain, just disgust. Their lawyer opened with a dramatic speech, painting them as helpless victims who'd sacrificed everything, only to be abandoned by their wealthy, ungrateful daughter. They claimed $5,000 a month was trivial for me, playing on the court's emotions to cast me as heartless. My lawyer stood, calmly dismantling their narrative with facts. My parents had voluntarily mortgaged their house, transferring ownership to Nathan a year ago, with signed documents as proof. They chose to favor one child, giving Nathan the $300,000 loan, which had nothing to do with me. Since leaving home at 18, I'd received no financial support from them. Legally, I owed them nothing. The judge reviewed the documents and turned to my parents, his voice firm. There is insufficient legal basis to require the defendant to provide financial support. This lawsuit has no standing. Case dismissed. One sentence, but it struck them like lightning. Mom's face paled, her lips trembling. Dad clenched his fists, his expression dark. Nathan, always indifferent, showed panic for the first time. As the trial ended, I approached them, meeting their eyes. This is the last time we'll see each other, I said, voice low. I gave you a chance. You didn't take it, Mom gasped, tears streaming. "Abigail, you can't abandon us." I smirked, no bitterness left. "You abandoned me long ago." I turned and left, leaving behind people who'd lost everything, not just money, but the daughter they never valued. A year passed without contact. No calls, no messages, no guilt-tripping lies cloaked in family love. I expected them to return with another sob story, but they vanished, as if they'd never existed. Ethan, my friend, gave me the last update over coffee one evening. "Heard something about your parents," he said. I set my cup down. "Where are they?" He shook his head. "No one knows. After the bank took the house, they left. No one's seen them since." I sat in silence, feeling nothing. "None of the relatives know?" I asked. He shrugged. "If they do, they're not telling you. They're calling you heartless." I chuckled dryly, unsurprised. "Let me guess. They say I have millions but refuse to spend 300,000 to save their house, and now no one knows if they're alive." Ethan nodded. "Something like that." I leaned back, gazing out at the city's twinkling lights. In the past year, I'd expanded my business, achieving more than I ever dreamed, with no regrets. I didn't care about my relatives' judgment or their whispers. Not one had been there when I fended for myself at 18, working 3 jobs to survive. None checked on me when I scraped together every penny for my first home. Why should I care about their opinions now? I'd built my life, my way, and no one could take that from me. What do you think? Was I right to walk away, or did I go too far? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. Stay tuned to the channel for tons of exciting videos. Every day, we upload fresh stories packed with thrills and surprises. Don't miss out. Comment, share, subscribe, and hit that like button.